Welcome back, my faithful crew. It's your Admiral Marcus Storm here, back again with another podcast episode. Today I am joined by returning guest Mystic and newcomer Alpal. In today's episode, we are talking about the YouTube channel Vivziepop and the pilots for two of their animations, Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss. Mystic, Alpal, my bad. Thank you for joining me today. How are you guys?
I'm pretty good.
If you two are ready, we can begin. We will be giving our opinions on various topics relating to the two animations. Hazbin Hotel is an animation about the Princess of Hell who is happy and cheery and she sees good in her fellow demons, so she opens a hotel to rehabilitate sinners to save them from yearly extermination. Hell of a Boss takes place in the same hell, the same universe, as Hazbin. It revolves around a company that demons and sinners can hire to take care of their unfinished business when they were alive on Earth. We'll start with character and world design. Sarah, I guess you could go first.
Um, you, wait.
Oh,
You said you didn't call me Mystic. You said my name. First of all. Second of
really?
all,
Oh, dang.
yeah. Second of all, um, the I can't really bounce off of you guys if I go first.
Okay, I guess I'll get first. For I don't have a lot to say for each category, so I'll just basically say what I have, and you guys can bounce off of that. All right, so for me, each character seems unique in their own ways, and I also see similarities to some older cartoons like Billy and Mandy and Powerpuff Girls because they were such interesting and unique characters in their design, and I thought it was really cool. It made me like the cartoon and relate to it more because it gave me a feel of nostalgia. And I guess Samurai Jack too, because that was pretty unique and original in its own way as well. What made me think of Powerpuff Girls as a similarity was I think one of the characters was like this demon or devil looking person. I can't remember, but the skin was red. She had a like pink thing around her neck. I could be wrong about the cartoon that it was from. And for the world design, it was really well done. I liked it. It was interesting to see that it was like this whole world split up into like different sectors and different sides of the pentagon or pentagram.
Okay. So the Powerpuff Girls villain that you're thinking of, I know exactly who that is. It's he's just called him.
It was a he.
Yes.
Oh,
The, that's that's kind of part of his character is that he's very effeminate.
Yeah,
no, that makes
I could
sense.
definitely see him being part of this universe. I was
Yeah,
actually looking through some fan art and I've seen some really cool fan art with him in this universe.
I actually hadn't thought of that before, so I'm glad that I thought of it now because it would really fit.
Right. And for
Which
Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, of course, Grim and their hell or whatever, their demons, they obviously fit in the universe for me, except for maybe Fred Burger, the green elephant.
yeah, I hadn't really thought of a connection to Billy and Mandy either, but it also fits. I would say maybe a little bit less so, but then again, that might just be the art style.
Yeah, it has a very kind of Cartoon Networky art style.
Yes.
So maybe that's why a lot of the similarities are coming to mind when we watch it, especially when we think of like the Powerpuff Girls and we think of him. You know, that kind of rough style is really what we see in this show.
Yeah, that was my thought exactly. For humor, the humor is probably one of my largest points that I had. The humor is At least for Helluva Boss, it's over the top. It's like short humor.
You can say that again.
But for Hazbin Hotel, I think it works really well with how it is delivered. How it can be delivered. Some of the jokes might be a little bit corny here and there. But I see similarities to humor in, like, for example, Rick and Morty or Family Guy, more adult humor or Adult Swim type comedy.
Yeah, I really felt that during Hell of a Boss. To me, there wasn't. Whenever I think of Hazbin, I don't think of the humor of the show. It was funny, but it wasn't like what I think of when I think of a comedy show. Hell of a Boss did have a lot of really good points. I especially love the dynamic between Blitz and Moxie. Whenever I watch that,
Yeah.
I'm always just laughing when they're interacting each other, like when Blitz is kind of stalking Moxie and Millie. I think it's hilarious. But I'm not a big fan of all the gore and all those
Right.
jokes.
Yeah, I think you both already know how I feel about that because I tend to not like adult humor that much. Um in Has-Been it's not so bad, but I think very much that Heck of a Boss, like the dial is just turned up way too high and they're trying way too hard to be like, "Oh, this is definitely for adults. Like don't even think for a single second this is for kids because we're going to make sure you will not make that mistake. Like see how adult we are, see how edgy we are. It's just trying a little too hard for me."
Right.
No, I completely understand that. It is very they really try to catch your attention with the humor, which I think sometimes they're trying to do a little too hard.
Yeah, I agree, especially when. But it makes sense when you have someone like Brandon Rogers with. For one of the voices, he's a YouTuber who does a lot of shock humor and offensive humor type skits.
Since you went into the voice acting, did anybody else when they hear Moxie just hear Invader Zim? Because
Yes.
that's all I heard throughout the whole episode. The moment he started talking, I was like, "This is Zim," and it almost took away a little bit of the rest of the show because the whole time I'm like, "Oh, that's Zim." It's kind of hard for me to think Moxie when I think of taking over Earth.
Yeah, that I literally heard. I was really like, I know that voice.
I did not really have that experience just because I knew of Invader Zim and I had seen clips and stuff, but I never really watched it as like a kid. I never even really saw any of the episodes all the way through or anything until recently because Nickelodeon's been doing the Splat thing at night. So I had a unique experience in that is not the voice that I heard when I heard Moxie speak. I didn't have that attachment.
Yeah, I think that really kind of changes how you see the show, especially because I used to watch a lot of Brandon Rogers. Hearing Brandon Rogers and Zim, it was really weird, and I almost couldn't really take it seriously
Right.
because they were just all who I was seeing. Now, Millie, I think I saw somewhere that Millie and Luna had the same voice actress. And I thought that was very good voice acting because the two of them sound very different.
See, I didn't know that. I didn't know they had the same voice actor or voice actress. But I do know there was another YouTuber. He's an impressionist called Brock Baker. I didn't even know what voices he did. And since we're talking about the character interactions, I love how well the characters in both work together when they interact. And like I said for Hazbin Hotel, or no, not Hazbin Hotel, but Help a Boss, it was a lot of shock humor, and it was hard to concentrate when with the familiarity. But it was also a much shorter pilot than Hazbin Hotel. It was so short we didn't get to see a whole lot. But for Hazbin Hotel, I loved the interactions with Angel Dust and Vaggie specifically. Their frenemy type interactions, and of course, Millie and Moxie were my favorite interactions for Hell of a Boss. They're love, but they're also still very dark.
For Hell of a Boss, I think Blitz and Moxie were my favorite character dynamic. But if we're talking about other characters' interactions, I very much Luna throughout all of Hell of a Boss, especially because of how short it was. I felt like she had too much time, and we couldn't really delve into the other characters
Right.
because there was that really long flashback with her, and I didn't find her an enjoyable character. I think she was the only character in Hell of a Boss and Hazbin Hotel that I just could not stand.
See, I got really confused by that flashback because it starts so early and it takes up the majority of the episode. Like it just keeps going, and there was several points where I was like, "Are we still in the flashback?" And so I agree that I think Luna got a little too time, and I think her dial in particular, if we're talking about the thing that I said earlier about the dial for Hakava being turned up too high, I think hers in particular was turned up way too high, and I think that's part of why she doesn't really work as well as the rest of the characters in that particular episode.
Yeah, and going back to the flashback, because I know the flashback was about Luna because Moxie said something about her, and especially when Blitz got the book from that one guy who I can't remember his name,
Oh, Soulless.
that didn't feel like it fit in the flashback. It was a good way to show how they could communicate with the living world, but it just didn't fit in the flashback because the flashback was about how awful Luna was. And then we get that little snippet of Blitz getting the book after he did some stuff with that one guy,
Yeah, very much agree with that.
which I really like how he got the book because I feel like we need that explanation of how they could go from one world to another, but it just didn't fit in the rest of that flashback.
Yeah, it's like they had two separate ideas for a flashback, and because they had such a short amount of time, they combined them together, and it doesn't quite work.
Yes, I. It was pretty confusing, especially the most confusing part of me was when it showed Blitzo getting the book and talking about Solus. Like, was that part of the flashback, or was that current time? Like when Luna said, "Hey, some guy called on the phone. He sounds a little DTF-y." Like, was that supposed to be part of the flashback or not? It
It
really
was
confused me.
supposed to be part of the flashback. It just I guess that was just showing how Luna could be. I really don't know. I know it was part of the flashback because they obviously need the book before they could go to the human world. It just ugh.
See, yeah, that's why it's so confusing. I feel like what they should have done really easy to do is just put a filter over the section that was supposed to be a flashback to differentiate it from the rest. So that's all it would have taken.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
As far as the animation style, it seemed fairly clean and crisp to me. The frame by frame movements and overall look and feel of them were pretty smooth. It looked really well edited, and I could tell these people worked very hard on this.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's very well done, I think, especially since they probably weren't as funded as they could have been for a show.
Yeah, considering they don't have that like big studio backing that a lot of shows have, I was really impressed by the animation itself, the fluidity of it, and then also just the art of itself. Because especially the very beginning, that opening sequence is just like so beautifully animated, and the sound design and everything, like that is a great way to open the show, to show off like this is what we're about, this is what we can do. um the only thing I will say is that I think at some points it's a little too much. Like I think they went a little too over with just how much detail and art they tried to fit into a single frame, and it creates a lot going on the screen at any given time.
Right.
And so it can be kind of hard to focus on what you're supposed to be focusing on.
Well, I think a part of the problem was because it was a pilot and they only had 30 minutes to get everything they wanted in. But the one
Yeah.
thing I do like about all that craziness is when you go back and rewatch, you notice things.
Right.
Like the second time I watched it, I noticed when Charlie was talking with Killjoy on the news channel, if you look in the background at
You
one of
could see
the
Luna.
clips, you can see Alistair watching and grinning. So I didn't notice that the first time through. Of course, the first time through, I didn't know he was going to be a character, but you still notice little things. And I personally like that. I like finding new things every time I watch something.
I did like the little nods to both of the pilots. Like in Helluva, you could see Luna watching Hazbin Hotel, Charlie's singing moment. And when a demon is being interviewed, you could see the billboard of Killjoy behind him.
Yeah, the crossover potential is so strong here.
I really hope. Well, I'm sure at some point they will do a crossover, but I think it might work out, especially with all the humor in Helluva and the kind of more serious tone of Hazbin. I think that can work really well.
Right.
Kind of meet in the middle at some point.
And yes, the voice acting and music was pretty amazing. It was much better than I was expecting it to be. Each voice worked really well for the characters, and the musical numbers for Helluva or Hazbin Hotel were almost like Disney quality. It made me think a lot of Disney and Pixar.
Oh, definitely.
I did like that Hazbin did it so well, especially for an intro. And for Helluva Boss, it had voices of like Brandon Rogers and Brock Baker, but they should have tried to change their voices to be less, I guess, out there and less noticeable.
Well, I don't think they need to try to change their voices. I personally like it. I think their voices fit. It's just I think it's going to take some getting used to hear them and not think of a certain character.
Yeah.
But going back to the musical numbers, I personally love all the songs. I think they are really catchy. I'll be doodling or doing some homework and I'll be playing these songs over and which is a shame because a lot of them are really short. But I don't know how they were able to get it so catchy because I love every song that they put out there. Even, you know, at the end of Helluva, Moxie wrote his song for Millie, and it's very, very dark. You know, they're talking about murdering people, but it's just so beautiful and catchy in a strange way, you know?
Yeah, I have to say, it's really hard to actually do a musical and do it well, and they succeeded. Impressed by that too.
Oh yeah.
Especially because, like you said, a lot of it in Hazbin Hotel in particular is very Disney-esque, if Disney was about 10 times darker than it currently is.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this for a while, but I think my favorite song is the reprise of um Inside Every Demon is a Rainbow that Alistair sings.
Oh yeah.
It's very short, but I love the tune. It's very old-timey. The animation in that seems beautiful also. And I really wish it was longer than 50 seconds because it is by far my favorite. Everything about Alistair is really interesting.
Right.
Yeah, Alistair is probably hands down the best character.
Which brings us to character personalities. I didn't really have much written down because I had a hard time thinking of their personalities and how to describe them, but Alistair, that was probably my favorite character so far. He's the way he talks, the way he acts, his evilness, but also like, oh, dang it, what's the word? Trying to trick you, but playing it off.
I don't know. I could see Alistair being an antagonist or an anti-hero in the series. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about his position because I read somewhere that he has a moral code, so that makes me wonder if at some point maybe he's going to go from, wanting to help to not wanting to help, or if he wants to eventually sabotage the hotel. I have a lot of thoughts and theories about it, and I'm really excited to see where his character goes.
I feel like he's probably gonna go more of the anti-hero direction, at least for the majority of the show. I feel like there probably will be a couple of incidents where he's just like straight up evil because he was designed that way. But I do think for the most part he's gonna be anti-hero. But he is I just want to see more of him. He's just one of those villains, well, not even villain per se, but one of those characters that just really has me captivated and just like I want to know more.
Right.
Yeah, speaking of captivating characters, I don't know, the moment Angel Dust came on screen, I was very, I guess, captivated.
Yeah.
Um, I just I was very interested in his character. The moment he stepped out of the car, like, I wanted to see more of him. He's very bold and out there, and he really grabbed my attention, probably more than any character besides Alistair did. And I personally love character development, and I can see a lot of development with Angel Dust. There was one part where Charlie's kind of bummed out, and Angel Dust is teasing her, and for a moment he hesitates
Oh
before he
yeah.
walks away. Like he looks like he feels bad for what he said, and that was a moment that I knew like he's gonna get some great character development in some way, shape, or form.
That's what that part is what made me know that
The
he
show, so I'm really excited about it.
yeah, that's one of the parts that made me think, oh yeah, he's definitely gonna turn around. He's definitely gonna be like rehabilitated.
Yeah, he didn't really do it for me, at least in this first like episode, but I definitely see the potential in him, and I think I will like Angel Dust more when we see some more of that development in him. I think that'll do it for me.
Yeah, it's definitely going to take some time because he's still, kind of thinking about himself and all that, but he's definitely going to get better in time.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, this is probably the shortest video ever. I'm already at the end of my list. If there's
Well,
Oh, I
anything
have a
else,
lot
yeah,
more to talk about.
yeah,
please
we've
do. Please
barely
do.
scratched the surface here.
Going to other characters, I personally really like Charlie, but to me, she didn't stand out. She stood out against all the other characters in a way that, she's very different from everyone else. But when I think of this show, she's not the first person I think of. I think she's a very typical character so far, which I know that's not saying a lot because there's only been one episode, but she just doesn't stand out to me when I think of the show.
See, Charlie is probably my favorite character, even if I will agree that Alistair is like the best in terms of design and overall appeal and stuff. There's just something about Charlie that I really like. I think maybe it's because she is so optimistic in such a dark place. I'm not really sure. Or maybe it's like because she is supposed to be the daughter of the devil
That's
and yet
probably
she's
one of the main problems about Hazbin Hotel I had. She was way too happy and nice of a character, and she didn't seem to fit into this world as well as she should, since she is the princess of hell after all. She should have a little more evil or dark tendencies, but I think we could get that with more episodes as time goes on.
No, I'm actually very curious because, you think that if she is, the daughter of the devil, like,
You almost wonder how are her parents? What are her parents actually
or
like?
or just how she got that way. You know, she reminds me a lot of Rapunzel from Tangled. She almost seems a bit naive. So that makes me wonder if that has anything to do with it. Like, does she maybe not fully understand how the world works? And maybe that's why she kind of has a view of anyone can change. Because compared to everyone else, like, everyone laughed at her when she said her idea. No one really believes in her except for Vaggie. So it really makes you think, how did she become that when she's surrounded by such dark?
Yeah, see, okay, for both her song and the reprise, all I can think of when I hear it is um I Have a Dream from Tangled. That's not what that song is called.
That's pretty
Am I?
close.
Yeah. But that's exactly what both of those make me think of when I hear it. And so I totally see that. And me and Alpa were talking before, and it kind of makes me wonder if, because Charlie was born there in Heck, if she by comparison is much happier than everyone else because she hasn't actually been alive and had to die.
Yeah, because it it took me a little while into the first episode that for me to realize a lot of these people were once alive. Like when you first see them, especially like Angel Dust and you see a design, you can't really imagine him living at some point, but then you remember he was alive, Vaggie was alive, Alistair at one point, they were alive on Earth.
Right. But Charlie was born there. She never got to experience an Earth or human life.
Right. So she maybe doesn't know and understand that death is just kind of a part of life, because the other residents of Heck, they don't really seem all that concerned about the genocide other than, oh, am I gonna be on the chopping block this time or not? Beyond that, they don't like she does.
Yeah, it's very, I mean, kind of fitting because, you know, once, you know, you die, you're there, but I mean, hell's supposed to be a punishment. And, you know, none of them, usually when hell's like depicted and you see people there, they usually feel remorse. So it's really strange to see most of them just kind of shrug it off. But speaking of that, is anyone else kind of curious as to why Vaggie is in hell?
Yeah.
Yes.
What did she do to
Because
get there?
I read somewhere that some people think it might be because she's a lesbian, and that's like the only reason she was there. Because like even when she interacts with Charlie, you know, she very much supports her girlfriend and all that. But you know, you can't really tell like what did she do in the past life. You know, Angel does she kind of feel like, oh yeah, he probably you know, did something. But even then, like he doesn't seem as bad as like Alistair. You know, some people there you're like, okay, they must have been pretty bad people, but you look at Baggy and you're like, how?
Yeah, I was thinking that she might just be one of those people where overall she's not necessarily a bad person. It's just she did like one um in the eyes of the deity of that world, one unforgivable thing, and that's why she's there, which might explain why she's not quite so blasé about being bad as the other characters like Angel Dust and the other characters, Cherry Bomb and whatever that snake guy's name was that are
Serpentious.
that guy. I don't think they ever actually say his name, and that's why I don't remember it, or they only say it like once. But
Yeah, they
either
only
way,
say it once. I think Tom Trench says it during the news report.
okay, I'm glad you clarified. I was about to have to ask you who was that, but okay, you say the other newscaster that's not Killjoy. That then I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Real quick, since you mentioned a deity mystic, there was something the second time or third time, I don't remember, when I watched Helluva Boss, Blitz says a certain comment that has me thinking. He says something about, oh, there is a god.
Oh
And
yeah, when
the reason that makes me
Luna
think is
gets the
because,
order to kill the kid.
yeah, if you're in hell, by that point, you should know whether there is or isn't. So that makes me think, is God like absent from this, in this universe?
Um,
Because,
I think probably what it is based on the opening sequence is that like he's technically involved, but they kind of never get to see him. They only ever see the angels, more specifically the angels that are there to commit the
Exterminate.
genocide.
yeah, but
Which makes me
I
think, I wonder if it's just angels or archangels.
going back to the angels, I read something yesterday about how maybe heaven's being overpopulated, and that's why they're kind of just choosing like the best people to go to heaven. Everyone else goes to hell because the angels seem to are going to seem to be playing a big part later, and that would maybe explain why Baggy's in hell. Maybe she wasn't the best person she could be, and that's why if heaven's overpopulated, they have to send people somewhere, and people can die in hell again. So maybe that has something to do with it.
I don't think it's I think it's like Coco where it's not really dying, it's they cease to exist.
Right.
I mean, same thing, kind of.
Which that's just kind of an interesting perspective to me because I know um, some religions, like for example, in ancient Egypt mythos, they believe that um, if you failed your trials at death, that you would cease to exist, and that was like the worst thing, like even worse than just whatever the bad option of an afterlife was. Ceasing to exist, worst thing ever.
Well, I mean, yeah, because we can kind of see in hell, they're not alive, but in a sense they are. And ceasing to exist, they would just be nothing. At least in hell, when you look at people, like they have lives, they have families, they have husbands and wives. So yeah, you can imagine that would be really bad if they just kind of poof gone.
It's an interesting dynamic to me to think of it that way, at least in the context of the show, because it's like, well, would you rather not exist or would you rather be here? But then Charlie's the one asking the question, like, well, wouldn't you rather be in heaven instead of here so that you won't have the possibility of not existing anymore?
Yeah, that seems to be her main drive. Is not quite, you know, maybe it's not just wanting people to be good, just trying to save people.
Yeah, that's what I
Because
got from it.
because most of the characters don't really seem to be remorseful, even in hell. So it makes you think like it obviously isn't that bad, because if it was that bad, people would be grabbing at a chance for a better afterlife.
Yeah, of course I think part of that comes down to most of them are not good people, and like because they're dead, like they live, they die, they know the world is a dark place, they're kind of used to it. And so they're like, "Hey, as long as I'm still here and I don't cease to exist, like whatever, man. I
Yeah.
can do whatever I want. I'm already in heck. What are they going to do to me?"
I just confirmed it. Yes, that was Moxie's. That was Invader Zim's voice actor.
Yep.
He was the voice of Moxie and the bratty kid.
That's
For Charlie, I really do hope we get more on Charlie's past. I also want to see how her and Vaggie both met and why it almost seems like Vaggie is like her protector.
Well, she is it's not confirmed in the show, but like the creators confirmed it elsewhere, like they are in a relationship. So that's like Vaggie's supposed to be like the kind of overprotective girlfriend, or maybe not even overprotective, but just like, with my sweet innocent girlfriend, I will hurt you.
Right.
Speaking of Charlie's past, I don't know if you guys noticed, but her mom's name is Lilith. And I thought that was very interesting to have, because I don't know if you guys know, but like in some forms of, the Bible, Lilith was the first woman instead of Eve.
But yeah, then she did something and got like cast out, and now she's kind of like in those mythos, she's kind of like a demon thing after that.
Yeah. So I thought that
Yeah,
was very interesting to have her mom be Lilith.
yeah. And I was actually curious, based on the fact that Charlie calls her mom and like the things she says on that call, which by the way, that moment show is, other than the intro, that's probably the most interesting and kind of beautiful moment. Just that pause after all that all over the place excitement in the first half, we get this reprieve and you can just see that vulnerability in Charlie. But it was interesting to me, based on some of the things she says, I was actually kind of curious if they're going to take the direction of, if Satan, if the devil, her dad, is actually the one in charge, or if it's her mom that's the one in charge and running the show.
Yeah, there's at least for a lot of questions to be answered about that.
There was
I've also questioned if Alistair is really this bad, this dangerous and evil, why haven't her parents killed him yet? Or ceased to exist him yet?
it might be that they either don't care or they're in support of it. I mean, they're in Heck, so
I
True.
think if I remember correctly, I think like the angels have a certain weapon that they use to make people cease to exist. So I'm not sure if anyone in hell actually has that.
that's a good point, actually.
And also like why would I mean, I don't think that the ruler of all this could really pick and choose who stays, because if you're there, you're there. You know, I don't think that he sees anyone too bad to be there.
Which, and also you have to consider, like, if they're like at the top of the food chain, then as long as Alistair's not stepping on their toes, giving them a problem specifically, they probably don't care. They're just like, do whatever you want, just don't bother me and we're cool.
Yeah, because I couldn't really see him. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe if he wanted to overthrow them, the way to do that would be through Charlie.
Yeah, that's one of
That's
the
a
theories I also
I
had.
just thought of that just right now. Oh my goodness.
that's a really good point, and it could be that that's another reason why Alistair is interested in helping with the hotel, because not only does he see the potential for failure and that entertain him wow, what did I just say? That entertains him, but it could also be like that where he's like, it feels hard enough. I can open up a vulnerability in Charlie and I could potentially have an in to take down her parents, or whichever is the one running the show, and then I'm in charge of Heck and it's all mine. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, that's very interesting to think about because I never thought of it that way before. But maybe it's not just some sort of game for Alistair. Maybe he does have some darker motivation behind all this.
My theory was that he uses the hotel to gather all these sinners, all these demons, and once it's at full capacity, he uses them all for as a conduit, a power supply, and gets his strength and power back enough to overthrow all of hell.
That could be, but I think we can't really say for sure because we
Right.
don't know how episodes are going to go. Maybe every episode someone checks in and they are rehabilitated and then they go. We don't, without that dynamic, we can't really say. I mean, it's a good theory, but we can't, we just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and I would say the other thing about that theory, um, when Zaggy gives Alistair's little spiel about how he appeared and kind of rose to power, there
overnight.
isn't really anything there isn't really anything that points to him absorbing power from others, I don't think.
Oh yeah,
So
I think
it's
you're right.
kind of it would be interesting to see if that is what's going on and they just didn't say that specifically yet, that that's how he gets his power. But at the same time, um like we don't know. He could just be that powerful and he picks and chooses how he uses that power.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of kind of wait and see things because we really don't know much about this world. Like we have a lot of information, but we're not really sure how to, use that information or like what
Mhm.
everything means.
Which actually there was something you noticed, Alpal, that you mentioned to me about Charlie's mom, about the phone.
Oh yeah, so the thing that went off when she called her mom, that's usually what you get when a number is like not available to call at all. So it makes me wonder like if her mom is, actively there because usually when a call is just busy or something, it'll go to the voicemail box. It usually doesn't beep the way that hers did. Now maybe that could be different in that universe or something, but it makes me wonder if her mom is even really in the picture.
Right.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting because it would be interesting to see if for some reason her mom is like maybe not dead because that's not really how it works, but like incapacitated in some way, and that's why the phone doesn't go through. Or maybe, see, that's kind of another thing that makes me question who they're going to have in charge, because it could be maybe her mom was off in some part of heck that doesn't have cell service because she's the one taking care of business, so to speak.
That
But
would
there's
also
just so much we
explain
don't
why
know.
Charlie in the phone call says, "Hey, I know you're busy, like really busy." That
Yeah,
would
yeah, that
explain
was
that
one of
part.
the other things that made me like,
Yeah,
oh, it's her mom. What's the deal there?
yeah, we really don't know a lot, but I'm sure we're gonna learn soon.
That I think that's probably the biggest thing that has going for it, right? Answered questions, and like we and it's the principle of always leave them wanting more. So like if
Well, I
every
definitely want more.
episode, yeah, if every episode can do something like that, then I think if it does get picked up by a bigger studio, it will inevitably be a hit.
Oh, definitely. They do have a lot going for them
Oh
in
yeah,
so many different aspects.
there is a there's a truckload of potential here.
I mean, even with Helluva, like the idea that these imps can, go back into the human world and, finish people's unfinished business is really interesting to me.
That's what I like about Hell Boss is the fact they can go to Earth, and it would be interesting to see how well they animate Earth and how they make it look.
I think my favorite part of that was before they go, they're like doing a reverse seance. Because, usually when you try to connect with that world, you hold a seance. But it was just kind of funny to me. I think that was one of the funniest parts was just seeing them having their own seance. Because you never really think how they get over to this world.
Yeah,
Yeah, see, my thing, I said earlier the thing about heck about like the dial being turned up too high. So I am not really that into seeing more of the show, but that's for that reason. If they turn the dial down like way down on all of the edgy humor and stuff, I think I would actually like it a lot more, because I do like the kind of like everyday office dynamic that they're going for, and I did like some of the humor that wasn't quite so like over the top edgy. And I also really like you guys were saying, that idea of um their like they had the potential to go to the human world. And also I agree that the reverse seance thing was pretty funny.
Yeah, Moxie's one of my favorite characters. He might be my third favorite character in both shows. So I think he's gonna keep me watching because he's kind of, the level-headed guy out of everyone. Like what
He's
he's saying
very
makes
grand.
sense. He's trying his hardest, and Blitz is just crazy. So I think, if nothing else, I'm gonna keep watching for Moxie.
I will definitely keep watching for Moxie and Millie both in their interactions with each other.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is I just want to see more of them. Like, forget. Okay, you can have them, and you can have Blitz, and then have like Moxie as just trying to deal with his insane boss, and that would be enough of a show right there for me.
Oh yeah, I want to see more of Blitz stalking them.
It's
Okay, I'm
it's
not so
very
jazzed for
nice.
that.
Hmm.
It was a little funny, but it's really nice seeing such a wonderful couple in the midst of all the bad things that are happening. I think I read somewhere like imps are at the very bottom of the hierarchy in hell, per se. So I can't imagine them having like the best life, but they're really doing it with each other. They're happy. They have a pretty healthy relationship considering they're killers.
Yeah, see, I would compare their relationship to a little bit to Gomez and Morticia Adams of the Adams family, if I could speak.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
because they just have that, like, like healthy couple image, and I like that, and we need more of that in animation. We really do.
Yeah, because a lot of famous couples, I was reading some of the comments for because they made a music video for the song that Moxie sings to Millie, and a lot of people were talking about like Harley Quinn and the Joker, and that's a very unhealthy relationship.
Oh
So
yeah.
trying to compare them to Moxie and Millie, I think, is awful because they're very happy together. Life's crazy, but really they're just beautiful together. I love it.
Agreed, very much agreed.
I wonder if anyone has ever thought about this for Alastor, that he could be based off of Aleister Crowley, an English occultist, ceremonial magician, poet, painter, novelist, and mountaineer. He founded the religion of Thelma, identifying himself as the prophet entrusted with guiding humanity into the whatever that word is of Horus in the early 20th century.
That might actually be where they got his name from, even if they're not meant to be like the same person. That would be
I
it.
I read somewhere why he had the name Alistair. Some sort of like I don't remember what it was, but that would have been great to know right now. There's actually a reason why his name's Alistair, but I think it's just the meaning of the name, if I remember correctly.
I mean, that's fine with me. Alistair is like my favorite name for a guy anyway, so
Are you sure
I
it's
think
not
it's very
Gerard?
fitting.
no, 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 that's not fair to say. Like a person named Gerard a lot does not mean it's my favorite name, no.
Well, is that everything you guys have?
Um,
Well, go on.
I just wanted to squeeze in here. Like, big problem definitely with Heck of a Boss is they have like a 10-year-old kid swearing like that.
Yeah.
I just I'm sorry, I can't get over that. I'm not going to get over that because honestly, my enjoyment of the show probably would have skyrocketed up more if you just tone it down. Like, I understand having him swear a little bit, especially after he dies, but again, I think they are like, I'm sorry, 10-year-old kid should not be swearing like that. It's uncalled for and it's unnecessary.
I will agree
Yeah,
with you there.
I can get why that would be unnerving.
Well, like I think what bothers me the most, they thought it would be funny, like, oh ha ha ha, you see this is a 10-year-old kid, but like 10-year-old kid that talks like a 50-year-old sailor that's had like the worst life ever.
It's like
Like,
Hazbin
ha.
Hotel is their friendly version, whereas Helluva Boss is how far can we actually push this?
Yeah, and I think they're trying too hard with it. If I'm honest, like, cause even like even me, I don't, like I said, I normally don't like that type of humor, but even I can appreciate it when it's done right, or when it's done in a certain way, or when it's used wisely, because even, not to bring up things that have no business being in this podcast, but even like My Chemical Romance, like they
Of
swear.
course.
Even they swear in their songs and stuff and have like darker themes and stuff. So I can appreciate that when it's done right. It's just be done right. I don't think, at least not for me, I don't think Heck of a Boss is doing it right. I understand some people will watch it and like it and think it's great and find it very funny. I am just not one of those people right now. Not with just the one episode.
Yeah, I can totally understand, especially when you first watch Hazbin. Like, it's definitely dark and more adult themed, but Helluva really has its own. It goes off the deep end.
Oh yeah.
I think that's probably the best example of like I don't hate that type of stuff because I do like Has Been a lot and I want more of it.
I mean, really, Hazbin wasn't that bad when you come to stuff like that. Like, yeah, they said a lot of bad words, and there was blood, but it really wasn't as bad as some other shows that are, on the air.
South Park.
I mean, really, you could say that about a lot of the super popular adult humor shows: South Park, Family Guy,
American
American
Dad.
Dad. Yeah, there's another one that I'm forgetting that I don't
Rick and
know
Morty,
what it
I
is.
maybe?
think you're forgetting a lot.
Well, those are like the big three though. Like
Yeah.
the three that you hear about all the time. And I personally do not like any of those for the same reasons. Like I just not none of them are my sense of humor because I know South Park likes to cover
Pop
political
culture.
issues.
Political,
Yeah.
pop culture, and all that. Trends.
Yeah, and
I
is
mean,
is
some shows
Ryan.
have their moments of, not being too bad, but I definitely understand, like,
Yeah, it's just, I mean, for me it's just that the moments where they aren't too crazy and they actually make good points are so few and far between. It just doesn't do it for me.
yeah, and I really can't see Has Been going in that direction. I
Right.
mean, I think they can make comments to the human world, like during Helluva, one guy made a comment to the state of Ohio, but I don't think they're gonna get like really political or anything like that. Because really, the only ones who would know about those pop culture references are people who died fairly, you know, newly.
Yeah. And then like
But
the thing about that is that like it has to fit the situation because you can always tell when a show just shoehorns in the pop culture references and it never works.
yeah, but I think they can make comments to like past references because I know like Angel Dust canonically died in like the 40s, and Vaggie died like 2014. So I could see them making comments, but I can't really see them like making like full episodes, like South Park makes full episodes about stuff like that.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think it'll be safe because that's not really like the point of the show either. The point of the show is to like tell its own story. Well,
Yeah, it's not supposed to be super humorous like Helluva's supposed to be.
yeah,
But
just
it's
There's just
But
so
I
much we don't know,
I can
and so
see
much
why.
potential for everything.
Yes.
yeah, everything's just I'm so ready for more. I keep talking about it to people.
Apparently, one of Sir Pentious, the snake guy, is the voice of Battle Block Theater or Battle Bucks, whatever it's called. There's a lot of potential to get some big name voice actors on this.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a double-edged sword because, like, the thing you guys were talking about earlier, where, like, if you know the voice actors, you can, like, a lot of people are just going to hear that voice and not really hear the character, so to speak. Um, and, like, I also think that's another maybe problem for the show getting picked up by a bigger studio is that whoever that studio is, if they want to keep the same voice talent, which they probably should keep it for consistency's sake, is they have to be willing to pay people, and like the bigger names have to not have a problem with the studio, which I don't know if there is any beef there between any of the voice actors and like studios that could potentially pick the show up, but like I could see there could be a little bit of issues there potentially that could hold it back a bit.
I don't think it would be as big of a problem as we think it would be.
Right.
Certain voice actor, especially because none of the voice actors are, awful
Yeah,
people.
that's true. Really, the biggest thing that this show has going against it for getting picked up is the themes and humor and stuff, because you don't really have a super long list of option of like places that would want to pick it up for starters. And then the other thing is like those studios up the money that they need to put up to keep the show going.
Yeah,
And
but
I think
I guess
another
we'll just
problem
have
with being picked up by big companies is also being hidden or uh yeah, hidden by all these bigger, more popular shows. It's not getting as much forethought and not getting as much advertisement as the others that are more successful.
Well,
now
that's
on that. I
oh, go
know,
ahead.
like the first couple of days has been got a lot of views, like millions and millions of views. People like this show. People,
Yeah,
I don't think popularity is gonna be a problem when it comes to this show.
Yeah, because like that's the thing you have to consider is that like a lot of other shows that are already out, they already have that big studio backing. So really, Hazbin is competing with the other, well, and Heck of a Boss, but mostly Hazbin because that's like the big one. It's competing with all of the other independently produced shows on the internet. And when it comes to that, I think I think Hazbin probably is like in, just because like how many other shows can you name off the top of your head that are independently produced on the internet by a small group of people, not a big studio, that would that like need that bigger studio to really like take off?
at the moment, only one. Other.
No, like what is the other one?
Oh, it's called Berry Tales. It's about uh well, obviously these characters are bears and they go to college. Basically, it shows college life and it shows what it's like, and it's supposed to be an all brown bear, or I guess an all black people college. I think it's supposed to be based off of Morehouse because it's called Bear House College.
Oh, okay. But yeah, see, so my point is that I feel like it has been, no offense to that show, like none whatsoever. I've never seen it, so I can't have an opinion on it. I think that's the thing
You
with Has Been
probably
is
don't
that
want to. It's kind of
I'll
like
take
Hell
your
of a
word for it
it's
then.
like Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotel together. It's got a lot
Oh,
of Hell of a Boss comedy in it.
oh, yeah, yeah, no, thank you. I'll take your word for it
Mm.
then. Um, but yeah, I think Hazbin probably has way more popularity than really any other independently produced show that would be in a similar position. Like,
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It really has exploded more than anything else I've ever seen before.
I remember when I first started seeing people tweet about it. I guess like right around when it first came out, like the first episode, I saw people talking about it on Twitter, and I'm like, is this? It sounded like the way people were talking about it. It was a whole season of a show that had just been dropped on Netflix, and like, oh, this is the big Netflix show that everybody is watching now. And then
That's what
I
I.
looked it up, and
That's what I thought too.
yeah, and then I looked it up, and I'm like, oh no, it's just one episode on YouTube. Like, wow. Just wow. That's impressive that people are talking about it that much that I thought that about it.
Currently, Hazbin sits at 31 million views, and it came out 5 months ago. For Helluva, 4 months ago, 16 million views. So there's a huge difference in how popular they are.
Yeah, like
But I mean, that's still a lot of views.
Yes,
yeah,
and
I
it's
actually had the
amazing
video.
for especially for such a short amount of time.
I actually opened 2 million views, 1.7 million likes. That is a lot. Like a lot.
Yeah, it's really crazy to think of that. But I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but there is something I really wanted to talk about
Of course.
with one of the characters. Um,
Okay.
Nifty.
Oh,
The
oh
Oh,
yeah.
she's so cute.
no, I was reading a lot. I think I mentioned this before, but I've really gone into like the lore and all this stuff, and I'm very into everything about this show. And I was reading about Alistair, and they say like the cast working with him said that he has like a very high moral code, and in that it says that like he'll never attack someone who's fleeing, and that he would never kill a child until they, or he would never harm a child, and if he was in the position, he would raise them until they had a mind of its own. So that makes me think, is Nifty like someone that was abandoned that he kind of took in? Because she seems very young, you
Yeah.
know. So that made me think, like what's her connection with him?
I almost thought she was his daughter for some reason because of her style compared to his.
It makes me, because she was wearing a poodle skirt, so maybe she was alive and she did die like sometime in the 50s as a young girl.
That just kind of makes me interested about like not even like the connection between her and Alistair, though that would definitely be interesting. Her story is because that kind of makes me wonder, since she is so young, like, did she die as a child, as a young teenager, and like if so, what's the story there? Like, what did she do to end up in heck if she
Yeah,
died so
especially
young?
because I don't even think she's a teenager, I think she's very young.
I think she's got to be
And
at
if she did
least
die in the 50s,
7.
it shows that like you don't really age in hell.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not it it's really weird cuz how could you be so young and do something that bad unless if there's something we're not being told.
It
Yeah,
could
or
be
if
that
she's just
she
like,
may have been from a very messed up family or something, or in a really bad situation, and she probably oofed herself because YouTube doesn't like the other word. And as we all know in the Bible, that's kind of frowned upon, or at least in some versions of the Bible, it's frowned upon to do that to yourself.
that's possible. I think either something like that, like it's something about her life and her childhood and stuff like that, or it is possible that we're reading a little too much into it and she's like just an imp.
Oh,
I mean, she doesn't look like an imp. Imps seem to have very distinct designs, but she could be another creature. We don't really know who all is in there, you know?
imps like Moxie,
Yeah.
Millie, and Blitz, they all had horns. So I
And, you know,
wonder if
they're red and they
imps
have,
have, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
but
We
I
don't
mean, she
know.
might just be someone. She might just be another creature. It's hard
Yeah.
because everyone looks so different, you know?
Yeah, it's one of those
Actually,
styles.
I wonder if she's whatever she and Cherry Bomb are supposed to be the same character because they both kind of look similar, and they both had one eye.
Oh, that's an interesting point that they both had the one eye. I really don't think they're that connected, the two of them, other than maybe there's something to the eye thing, but like I kind of I kind of hope we don't see any more cherry bombs, like not like her. She
It was
bored me.
okay.
She bored me. I was bored watching her, like, but actually that whole scene before Angel Dust comes on, it's just like, who are these characters? Why do I care?
It's just
Yeah.
world building. People want.
Yeah.
I mean,
Actually, it's still confusing. Why do people want all this territory and hell?
Well, I mean,
that makes
everybody's
sense.
always wanted territory, you know, even in the living world.
True.
It has to go
Yeah.
down to human nature.
Well, and to me, like, it makes sense because if you know anything about, like, the mob, like, the actual real territory is, like, a big thing. And I have to imagine that probably been, they probably were either in the mob or associated with them in some way. And so it just kind of carries over.
Serpentius definitely seems like he could have been, because he seems more like elegant or fancy. He seems like a mafia boss.
Yeah, like I did kind of like his character a little bit. It's just like, main problem is that like we don't really have any explanation right off the bat as to like who these characters are and how they're relevant to everything else other than to show the turf wars.
He seemed like a
Yeah.
nerdy type character. He seemed like someone who wanted to be a bad guy. He wanted to do stuff to get noticed. And maybe that's what he did to get there.
And then you have Cherry Bomb over here who's just like, I'm gonna smash everything because reason.
I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do.
I mean, I just don't understand her character. And like, if we did see more of her, I would hope for more development and like make her more interesting to me. Because right now, to me, she was just a means to an end. She was just another person to have in the turf war. She was just like the reason to get Angel Dust involved, the reason to make Angel Dust look bad.
I
Right.
mean, that might have been all that she was. I mean, we really don't know,
Yeah, that's the problem. We don't know.
but I think she did. If her job was only to, you know, show how the world is, I think she did her job well.
And yeah, that's definitely a good point. Like if I was supposed to not like her, then like mission accomplished.
Definitely.
Speaking of not liking, I I love Killjoy, and like I think she's a very well done. I don't want to call her a villain because that's not really the right word, but you know,
Antagonist.
antagonist.
Yeah, I think like you're supposed to love to hate. I just I agree that I like her in that sense because it's just like, oh man, I cannot wait to see you get like kicked in the face or something because you are just awful.
Yeah, I think they did that very well with her.
Which I know that like some people were kind of like they didn't like her, like actively didn't like her, not I don't like you because you're an antagonist, because she said the thing about I don't touch the gays.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
remember that.
I understand, but like that's who she is though. She's just a snobby.
Yeah, like that's and then cuz I was watching somebody else who pointed out that like directly after she says that, Charlie says, "Yeah, how's that working out for you?" And she looked up at the sign that says where they are. Like the point is Killjoy is a good person. So if she says something like that, like she's supposed to say things like that. She's supposed to be like a very aggressive person like that. That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really understand why people are like, getting upset about it. It's like
That's
she's
what made me
supposed to be
think
that way.
she died before LGBTQ was more acceptable. It was more widely favored and legalized. She was before that time.
Well, and I mean, even then, like they're in heck. Like these are not supposed to be good people, other than arguably maybe Charlie.
I mean,
And
Baggy seems pretty
maybe
good.
Baggy.
Are you telling me Alistair's not a good person?
We do not know
If
yet.
you want to believe Alistair is a good person, you go right
I
ahead.
mean, he has a moral code which has to say something considering a lot of other demons don't.
I mean, that's true.
At the same time, so does
Uh,
Angel Dust. He has a moral code or a heart.
well, the thing about Angel Dust, I read somewhere that he might have just been there because he was gay. Because I mean, he probably did some stuff, but I couldn't really see him doing like really bad stuff in the living world, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Like he probably wasn't a murderer or anything. Of course, we don't know, but
Yeah, it seems to me like he was probably just like maybe like a drug addict and maybe a sex addict from the way that he talks.
probably. I actually read, oh my goodness. I read something somewhere about him, but I can't remember it. I don't know. I'm definitely on his side because I think there's more going on with his life than what we know when it comes to how he talks and how he acts. You know?
I will agree to that. I think we didn't get to see a lot of like beyond like the surface level humor that he has. We didn't get to see like anything beyond that for him. We didn't get to see like his true motivations, if you will, in like the first episode.
Because we really don't know if, like, he's doing what he's doing for his own personal gain or someone else's.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I'm thinking that is because, they're in hell, people could manipulate. Maybe he's not, maybe he's being a little forced into what he's doing. Of course, we don't know, but I mean, hey.
Well, and he did. I think it speaks volumes. He did agree to help out with the hotel with like the reformation. Follow through with it like he was supposed to. He still agreed to do it, and that says something about his character right there.
And like when he was feeling remorse for what he said about Charlie, like I really think that deep down he's not a bad person and that he's gonna get better, you know.
Time will tell.
About the thing about maybe he's being forced. He could he could be controlled by people like in the intro we saw Corn Studios. I'm not gonna say the actual word on YouTube. But those people in that building could be controlling him or what he does. And maybe him helping the hotel would be him kind of getting away or getting free of them.
I mean, yeah, we don't really know what's going on with his life, to really say why he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, that's kind of like the one reason that I didn't like him that much. I didn't hate him or anything. I just like, didn't do it for me. I think that's just it. Is there's just so much there that we know absolutely nothing about, and we need more time with him. That's my thing about Vaggie. Like, I love her character design, but I can't say I love her character because we don't get to see a whole lot of it. She's one of the least developed in the episode.
And the problem with that is just because it was one 30-minute episode, and there's
Mhm.
just so much they had to get in. That's kind of hard. I mean, I think the little we did see of her was really good. I think she's a good person. She's a good friend. She supports Charlie. She's very protective over her girlfriend, which is, usual, but she really seems to, like, deep down want her to succeed, which no one else does. So it's really nice to see that.
Yeah, I just really want to see more of just her and Charlie just like being cute as a couple. Like, I just want more of that.
I think we'll get that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I know the writers were talking about like going into their backstory sometime in the show. So I think we'll
Please.
definitely see like what they were doing before all this.
Please, and please let it be cute.
I don't even
I
care
think it'll
if
be
they're
cute. I
part
don't
of
think
the
it's
actual
be a sore
series
spot.
or I don't care if they're part of the actual series or standalone specials either. I just would love to see more of their past, their stories, backstories, their upbringings.
I think we'll definitely see more. I don't think we're gonna have to worry about not seeing anything.
Which makes you wonder if we will see anything about smaller characters like Nifty or the gambler Husker.
Husker reminded me of the Cat in the Hat. Like, I couldn't take him seriously. I still can't. I don't think I ever will. But I definitely think we're gonna get a lot of backstory for these people.
Yeah, I think that's like the one benefit of this show being made by like a smaller group of people and not a big studio is that they're on social media, they're in fandoms, they know how people are, they can see what people want a little more clearly. They're not just driven by, oh, let's make this happen to make as much money as possible off of people, because I'm sure they already, like, as writers, have really strong visions and ideas for these characters, and they want to share that with everyone.
Who knows? They
And
could
then
have the makings to become their own company.
that's possible, but the only problem with that is it's very hard to do that in this day and age and like be successful at it for the long term is the only
That's a good
problem.
point.
Of course, then
Yeah.
again, I know it's not exactly the same, but kind of like Rooster Teeth is kind of doing it.
Oh yeah. Even though they're
So
kind of, even though all these online animators and animation teams or small companies, they're kind of at a standstill or they have to work from home. It's harder with everything going on right now.
I mean, it depends on
But
how you
even like
do
Rooster
it.
Teeth, they're still planning on putting out smaller things aside from their normal series,
Yeah,
like
like
RWBY and well, actually, I
is
think that's the only one they've been really working hard on. I don't
don't
know.
you just say it like Ruby?
I usually say both. It depends.
Um, I would say it kind of, to me, I feel like if those companies are at a standstill or not, it really depends we normally work anyway, because I feel like a lot of them, you have people that are like already spaced pretty far apart, so they're mostly just sending files back and forth anyway, and the big problem isn't so much being able to connect to each other to get the work done like that, but it's more so um, like these people often like put up their own money and stuff to be able to do these things like fan animations and stuff,
Oh
and so
yeah.
the problem there is just having the money that they would normally have, like if they got laid a job or whatever, like that would be the big problem right there. I don't know. I'm not one of those people. I don't work in that kind of job. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're just gonna have to kind of, see how everything turns out with that.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
But definitely excited for more.
oh
Me
yeah.
too. Well, more has been, not more heck of a boss. I could do without.
I think it has potential.
I mean, it does. It's just if we see more, tone it down. Tone it down, please.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. It has potential if they do it sparingly, if they use their comedy sparingly.
Or like just tone it down to like Hazbin's level. That's all I need. Like just that's all you have to do. Like you don't even have to like don't take it all out. Just like take that dial. The dial is currently turned up on max. Let's take it back to like just high. If it's on max, take it to high, or if it's on high, then like take it to medium.
Well, I mean, I think it's supposed to be more comedy driven, so I can't really say it should be has been, because I don't think
Well,
that
no,
would fit. I think it.
I don't mean like take out the comedy. I just mean like tone it down. Like because they're leaning hard on like the swear words and the innuendos and the violence and the gore and stuff. It's mostly like it's just it's too edgy.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I think a lot of it's supposed to be edgy, but I definitely get it.
I get being edgy to a point, but like they've gone past that point and they need to like back up a bit.
I think what they were trying to do is try to reach most, if not all, levels of comedy or people's interests in comedy.
Um, well, they very much missed the mark if that's what they were trying to do because they didn't really. I, to be fair, I'm a very like highbrow humor type of person most of the time. A lot of like brow humor, so to speak. So that's like my a big problem that I have with it is it's just like oh like super obvious adult edgy humor. Great. Can we get something to take to find funny? But like I also know not everyone's into that.
No, I definitely agree. I'd rather stuff be witty than just be dirty when it comes to jokes. But I
Right,
think
yeah.
finding
I need that on a t-shirt.
I think finding who can write witty jokes that are very, very hard. Because they're usually when you do that, you kind of get into the corny territory, and not a lot of people like that, and don't get dry humor. So there's a problem with that too.
Yeah, see that's my thing is I love puns, I love corny, and I love dry humor.
It's very hard to pull off, I think, and that's why a lot of shows like don't do it.
I mean that's fair, but I don't think the answer to that is just throw swear words at it until it's funny.
Oh no, that's
Yeah.
not.
And
But
that's what I feel like Heck of a Boss did.
no, I definitely understand that. But I mean, it could have been a lot worse too.
That's true. I will acknowledge that. It could have been way worse.
One can only imagine.
But overall, I think I really do like the idea of it. I really hope that it gets better because I like the characters except for Luna. I like the idea. I really want to see more. I mean, they had some kind of funny one-liners, like after the kid was in the hospital and the doctor comes out and asks
Oh
what's about
yeah.
insurance. He's like, "The F is insurance." I thought that was so funny. Just it was how that made me laugh. Every time I watch it, I laugh. And I know it's not that funny, but his delivery was great, I think, when it comes to that.
See, for me, like the part that was funny about that wasn't Blitz's that's his name, right? Blitz. It wasn't
Yes.
his reaction to it. It was the fact that the doctor asked the question in the first place. Like, you're looking at these three, to you, a human, these three demons. These three people that clearly something's wrong with them. Clearly they are not normal. And the question that you ask them is not what happened or why do you look like that or how are you related to this kid, but no, do you have insurance? That's the part that was funny to me. Like, that's the question you ask.
Yeah, it it really was. I really like that scene. I thought it was really great. And if they had more like that, I think I would have enjoyed it more.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
But I'm definitely rooting for it.
Fingers crossed. Well, if is that everything?
I think so.
I could talk about more, but I think that's enough for today.
You're right.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for joining me today, Mystic and Alpal. I really appreciate having you both here.
yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I guess that about wraps it up for today. I hope this brought entertainment to all of you in quarantine. Remember to practice social distancing, and if you're sick, self-isolate. Practice great hygiene. If you're sad, don't worry, you're not alone. You are home, do whatever to take your mind off things. Go outside, play video and board games with the family, do arts and crafts. There's so many things you can do that'll keep you busy. I wish you all the best. Stay safe, and God bless each and every one of you. Have a great weekend. This is Admiral Storm. Peace.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face. Tell me that you love me, even if it's fake.